It's not in screen mode. No, I mean the slide show mode.
Okay, so before we change over sessions, let's also change the recordings. We haven't done that already.
Can you see my screen, Max?
Yes. We
Yes.
all can.
Great. All right, guys. So welcome to this first session for the conference. So as Kristen said, this is really the most fun and popular session of the week. And today we're going to talk about what's new in the DHIS2 software. And we're going to focus on the latest 2 releases. So you're going to see all of the good and new stuff that came out in those releases. We have a lot of great things for you this afternoon. There's a lot of improvements across new visualization types. There's plenty of new apps. We have a lot of performance improvements. There's usability improvements, and of course, stability and platform enhancements as well. So for this session, we're going to have basically 4 sections. There's going to be analytics, which is led by Scott Rospatrick, who is the product manager for the analytics product. For the tracker section, we're going to have Marcus presenting. Marcus is the team lead for tracker. And then for the Android app, we're going to have Marta Villa and Jose Munoz from Spain presenting on the Android app. And then there's going to be Austin McGee, who is the sort of lead architect and also now deputy tech lead for DHIS2, together with me to present on the platform enhancements. And then we're going to have a few minutes towards the end for questions. So if you have any questions, there will be a chance to ask those towards the end. So with that, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Scott, to start talking about the analytics part.
Great, thanks for the introduction, Lars. Let me just make sure I get my screen shared here. Let me know when you can see it, please.
Yep, I can see it.
And you're looking at the slide deck, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's amazing to see so many close friends and colleagues tuning in.
It's not in presentation. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and forth.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a little easier this way. We have a tremendous number of analytics features to try to highlight for you. We're actually not going to be able to get through everything that was in the 35 and 36 release. We're just going to get the highlights. But before I get started, I do just want to say, please don't leave this if you have any questions, without those questions being answered. You can track me down on this community practice. You can find me in Gather. You can virtually walk right up to me and let's talk. So I'm going to have to go quite quickly. But again, please do reach out if you have any questions. All right, let's start with the dashboards. Lots of cool stuff coming in the dashboards app in the 35 and 36. The first thing we're going to look at is dashboard printing. Now it's very easy to print a dashboard. We also have filter settings now, a fairly popular request that we've been able to put in. We have a full screen dashboard item presentation mode that makes it much easier to view analytics and share analytics from one screen. And highly anticipated, very happy to announce and share with you all the mobile or cell phone friendly dashboard application. So let's just go over to DHIS2. The first thing that we're going to look at is dashboard printing. Now this is very simple. On the dashboard app, we just need to go to the More button and we go down to the final option, which is Print. And you see that we have 2 print options. We have dashboard layout print and a single item per page. Let's just take a look at the dashboard layout print. And when I do this, you'll see that the dashboard print layout is coming in the same layout that I have on the standard dashboard. Of course, we are putting in page breaks. It's a standard A4 size piece of paper. We're putting in page breaks, but you can configure your dashboard so that it's fairly printer friendly, meaning that all of your dashboard items fit onto a single piece of paper so that it makes sense. Right now, you're just seeing an example of DHIS2 kind of auto rendering it. But again, you can configure your dashboard to be more printer friendly. If I click the print button in the top right corner, of course, I get all of my various print options. I can save it as a PDF. I can attach it to an email, send it out as kind of a routine report. If I exit the print preview and go back to my print options once again, I'm going to go to my single item per page just to let you see what that looks like. So this is going to put every single dashboard item to take up a full page. And you can see those coming now. And essentially this makes it so it's a little bit easier to share data. You can print this out, use it in a meeting, pass it around, just makes it a little bit easier to understand and interpret the analytics that you have presented on your dashboard. All right, moving right along. It has been a long request to us that the folks who are making dashboards are saying that all of these filter options that you have on each one of the dashboards is not always that useful. Sorry, we're just waiting for DHIS2 to load. And you're telling us that not all of the dashboards need all of these different filter options. Well, now you can actually edit which filter options are available per dashboard. So I'm going to go to the edit. And in the edit, we now see a filter settings button. If I click on the filter settings button, we have two options. We can allow all filter dimensions, or we can just select a few. And when I do that, you see that the available filter dimensions are on the left. The selected ones are on the right. Let's say for this dashboard, just for example, or unit, double click it, turn it off, click confirm, save my changes, go back to my filter button, and look, now all we see is period. So you can turn off those filters that are not useful to those dashboards that you have. The next thing that we need to look at is within each dashboard item, we have this 3-dot expanded option menu. So I'll click on that now, and you can see that I have all of my standard options for each dashboard item that we've had for a long time. We have a new one now here at the bottom as well, and that's view full screen. So if I click on view full screen, it makes the dashboard item take up the entire screen. Again, makes it much easier to everyone to huddle around a computer screen, to project a dashboard directly on a PowerPoint projection, or not PowerPoint, but through a projector, and you know, let me just get out of this. You get out of it by going to the top right corner. And the next thing that we are going to go over quite quickly here is the mobile-friendly dashboard app. So we have been working very hard to bring all of the power of the DHIS2 dashboard onto your cell phone. And I think that we're getting very, very close to having all of the feature sets there. What I'm going to show with you first now is what we released in the 236. So you can actually see that I'm logged into the Play instance of 236. I'm on my cell phone. You're actually seeing my live cell phone right now. And we're looking at the same dashboard on the web browser as well as on my cell phone. And you can see as I scroll down, I'm currently in portrait mode, and you see each one of the dashboard items is stacked on top of each other. If I go up, I can see that I can move in between my various dashboards at the top. If I click on case malaria, for example, I see my dashboard opening. If I go to view full screen on this first map, I can, of course, interact with it, zoom in, have all the same powerful functionality that I have on a dashboard just directly on my phone, go down into individual, super low places, click on individual cases, and perform all the kinds of analyses that I would standardly do on the web browser, but now on my cell phone. If I switch my phone over to landscape mode, there you go. You notice that the dashboard layout changes, and now it actually looks the same as it looks on the web browser. So the same order and layout of the dashboard. But I also have some additional features that are showing up. So I can edit my dashboard. I can change basically anything about my dashboard here on my cell phone. I can add my filters. And again, I have my more options. I can show descriptions and even
Looks like we might have lost Scott temporarily. If you'd like to move on to the next presenter.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead with the tracker part, Max, and we'll take?
Yeah, we can catch up with Scott when he's back.
Okay. Yes. Hey, I'm Marcus Becken. I'm gonna share my screen with you in a moment. There, I think you should see my presentation. On the tracker team, we don't have as many features this time. We have three main undertakings that I'm going to focus on in this presentation, and the first one is performance improvements. During the last year, a lot of our resources has been going into performance improvements to be able to support larger and larger scale of trackers. The other main part we are focusing on and working on the tracker team is the new capture app. We are replacing the old tracker capture with a new modern web app that we call the new capture app. So I will be showing you some updates on the capture app as well. The last point I will focus on, main point I will focus on, is the re-implemented services for tracker, and this is a bit going into the performance improvements. These re-implemented services are our long-term strategy for going to even bigger scale than is possible today. With that, I will go into the first topic, which is improvements to performance. We had this as one of the key tracker focus from all stakeholders in the prioritization and alignment process done over a year ago. And improving performance is and have been our main focus for at least the last year. One aspect that has given us extra fuel in this endeavor is the global scale-up that has been driven by COVID and vaccination programs. Especially COVID vaccination has been a driver for these improvements. We had a webinar releasing the COVID vaccination package, and the main question that was posed to us from the participants of the webinar was whether we would be able to drive this into scale, and whether the countries would be able to track their entire population in vaccination programs. So we have been working on better and more formalized framework for performance testing on large-scale vaccine setups, which has been really useful the last year in terms of making better decisions and making better code and improving the performance. We have also been working directly with some of the bigger instances and removing bottlenecks and helping them to scale up. These improvements have been made in 3 versions simultaneously, in 2.34, 35, and 36. So even though the work has been ongoing through 35 and 36, the improvements have been merged on all these 3 versions, and they were released in 2.34.4, 2.35.2, and 2.36.0. And we have been going out saying that if you're scaling a tracker, you should probably be on one of these 3 versions. We know that the best among these 3 is 2.36, and the second best is 2.35, and 2.34 is the lowest performer among the 3 optimized versions here. I'm going to show you some numbers now comparing 2.34.3 and 2.34.4, which is not the biggest jump, but it's very descriptive of the performance increase you would be seeing between 2.35.1 and 2.35.2, and as well in 2.36 you would have the same improvements that I'm going to show you, plus a little bit more. So this first slide shows the median response time running tests for 10 minutes with low concurrency. This is an instance running 3 million tracked entry instances, 3 million persons, and 6 million enrollments, about 20,000 users and 20,000 org units. And as you can see in the blue here, we see the low performing 234.3, and the red is the much better performing 234.4. One thing to mark here is the Android sync, which is a very heavy operation, syncing a lot of data. At least in these tests, they are syncing a lot of tracked entry instances at once. And it could take up to 60 seconds before, and now with the optimized code, it will take around 5. The other calls is reducing response times from seconds to milliseconds. Here is a performance test performed with concurrency, and as we can see, with 100 concurrent users doing operations, 2 to 3 operations per minute, the request per second for the 234.3, the old blue line here, is starting at around 3, and with concurrency it deteriorates. And at 500 concurrent users, it's no longer responding. With 234.4, with improvements and removed bottlenecks, we see that the request per second is increasing up until around 300 concurrent users requesting data from the server or sending requests to the server, and then it starts deteriorating, but it's still usable with much higher user counts. I'm going to give you a quick side-by-side demo here, and I'm doing this in 2 versions of 234. To the left, you will see the faster 234.4, and to the right, you will see the old 234.3. And keep in mind that these improvements are also present in 235 and 236. The database I'm running on is the same as 3 million people tracked and 6 million enrollments. There's the 20,000 org units in the database, and I'm showing you now what it looks like on my server in on the performance test servers. I now switched sharing, so I hope you can see the side-by-side, the 2 trackers side-by-side here. And to show one comparison, I'm gonna refresh both of these lists, and this is working lists that lists over 600,000 tracked entry instances, which in the improved version will take around 4 seconds. We can see to the left that it will be around 4 seconds before we see the list. And reminding you, this is 600,000 tracked entry instances being filtered and ordered, which is not a very efficient list, but I still wanted to show you that we are able to load so big lists. To the right, the older 234.3 will still be working for a while, and it will take around 1 minute and 30 seconds. I'm going to prepare a search instead and search for my demo user, and I'm going to prepare the search in both places, and I'm going to start it in the upgraded 34.4 to the left, and also at the same time to the right in the not improved version. And you can see that in the improved version, the search in 3 million records is taking around 2-3 seconds, and it will take 6 to 7 in the not improved version to the right. One last thing to show you from these performance test environments is visible here. If you change a value, as you know, in the tracker capture, you will see the field turning yellow while the request is being done, and green when the request is finished. So if I start in the slower unoptimized environment, you can see the field stays yellow for a while, and it turns green, it will take a second or two. Whereas in the upgraded 234.4, you will see it turning green almost immediately. And this represents the server spending much less data on each request. Okay, so I will share my presentation again. Some numbers from the ground. We have been supporting and learning from some of the bigger immunization campaigns. In Bangladesh, there was a campaign done over 4 weeks in 400,000 sites with 34 million vaccinations. And scaling this application, we found some bottlenecks that were removed, and we found optimizations that were helping this succeed. Sri Lanka has a vaccination program with where they're entering around 60,000 entries per day. This is a large number of users working to enter all this data, and they have 16 million people tracked in that database. Some numbers from Rwanda, where they have a COVID case surveillance tracking 1.5 million people. As well as a vaccination instance that is scaling, and this is still being scaled, and they have a target of 3 million by the end of 2021 and 7 million by July 2022. All right, so next topic is the Capture app, and I want to show you some improvements that we have done there. In the Capture app, as you know, we are implementing functionality for tracking people in the same way as we had to do in the Tracker Capture app, which is the old version of the app. So now in the new Capture app, I will show you some of the improvements that has been released in 236. And let's see if I can share the right screen. There. Now I trust you can see my my Capture app, which is the next part of the demo. I'm going to show you how to register new tracked entity instances, how to search for tracked entity instances, and how to list and filter. To take the last point first, in the Capture app, it has been possible for a while to filter event programs, and right now I'm looking at one event program and the filter that has been there for a while. The new functionality is that I can now select the tracker program and have the same sort of filter with working lists, and also other filters that I can apply to work with the data in my org units. For example, I can go to my Nyandama that is here, and I can click at this tracked entity instance down here and open the record. As you will see when I click is that I will be taken to the old Tracker Capture app, and this page here is the one we are working on and going to release in 237 in the Capture app, but right now we are taken to the Tracker Capture app when you open the record like this. And we can fix the data that was missing and go back. If I click the back button now, I will be taken back to the same list in the Capture app. So the integration between these apps is built to be as seamless as possible, and we hope you can now direct your users to use only the Capture app for both tracker and event programs, even though you will be sent into the old app for some operations. If I click new here, I could have added a new focus area in malaria focus investigation directly, or I can use the new ... which is the more of the wizard for adding something. Here I could, for example, have added a new person into the database without enrolling into a new program. What I'm going to do right now, however, is to change to malaria focus and add a focus investigation. Just like so. And when I save it, you see that I will be taken to the old Capture again. And this is where I would have to enter event data for 236. again, for 237, this is going to change, and there will be a new UI also for this this part of the capture app. I can then go back and potentially, if I'm working with cases as well, I might add the case. I might add a relationship to the foci that we just added. I copied the ID here. And I can link my case to the foci in the same app. Oops. If I also add this report date and save, I will see my event data here, and I can switch between event and foci. The last button I wanted to show you was the search button here, and in the same way, we can go directly to search for a focus area, since that was the program we had selected, or we could have gone to the search wizard, which is allowing also search for entities directly. When I go to focus investigation and search, I can, in the same way as always, we use these parameters and search. And in the same way as we did in the old tracker capture, you will get a fallback. If you don't find anything in the program you're searching in, there will be an automatic fallback to prevent duplicates in the to find searches from other programs. And here we see I found my my search with the keyword test. There, I will change my presentation again. We hope these changes here will allow you in 236 to be able to use the capture app as the starting point for all these operations, both event and tracker programs. There has been some usability enhancements in the capture app, and one of them is this one, this year selector in the date picker. For birth dates and some other kinds of dates, the year selector is important to quickly go to the right year. We also have some enhancements on the workflow generally and the context selector. So as you might have noticed, the program came before the org unit, and we have some new functionality in the buttons for new and search to help the workflow in working with tracker and event data. Some of the changes that is not so visible is that the metadata cache is now optimized, and this means that it does not download more data or more often than it needs to, but it downloads the data that it needs to, and as long as you update the version number of your programs, you will not have to tell your users to run the cache cleaner anymore. We know that the cache cleaner has a bit of a therapeutic effect with users, so you can choose whether or not to tell this to your users, but it should not be necessary anymore to use the cache cleaner, as long as you update your program version, that is. Some smaller enhancements to the tracker capture app. The notes will now contain the full name, not the username. There was some settings where the username was not really telling the users who entered the record. If the username is a number, for example, it might not be so easy to see who actually entered the note from the username. And then we also have enhanced the tracker to have a keyboard-only data entry. You will not have to use the mouse anymore to select the options and radio buttons. Some enhancements to the program rules. The biggest one might be the first one here, the expression validation. And I'll give you a quick demo. There. Here you see the maintenance app and the program rule screen. And if I go to the expression here, you can see now that we have this green check mark, and we have a description of the expression at the bottom. And if you change anything, maybe if you change the name of a program rule variable, you will be warned if this program rule variable is not existing. You will be warned if the expression is not well formed. And you will be warned if you try to use a function that does not exist. So we hope that this feature will help users making program rules and avoid mistakes which can be costly and hard to find in the expressions. There's also a new variable for completed date in expressions that can be useful if you're sending messages, for example, to your people that came into a visit and completed a visit. You might want to send them a message a few days after they came to the clinic. And it can be that the completed date can be what you need to send this message in the right at the right dates. There is an experts lounge for program rules at Wednesday. That's at 4. So if you're interested in this topic, please join us there. We will, Pablo and me will do a lounge and answer questions. The last topic that I'm going to go through today is the reimplemented services for Tracker. And the reimplemented services, you say, what is that? We have actually for the last several releases, we have been spending a lot of resources on a full re-implementation of the Tracker services. And the re-implementation is a little bit different from the performance enhancements that I showed you in the first part of the session. The re-implementation aims to, we have rewritten and re-implemented the services from the ground up on a much better architecture, which is going to be more maintainable and have a greater potential for optimization. And we hope this is the way to take Tracker to even higher scales than is possible today. And we also have implemented more functionality in the new Tracker services. The services now run program rules for validation and also calculation, and there is a lot of new options and possibilities with the new Tracker that we could not build into the old one. The endpoint is released in 2.36, and the reason for releasing it now is that we will allow integration for apps and scripts. So if you have an app or a script, it might be a good idea to start looking at the new endpoint and testing your app with a new endpoint, because the old endpoint is going to be replaced in a future release. I put 2.39 question mark. We are not totally sure when we are releasing it. It should not be before 2.39 at least. It is also great if you have any dependencies that you reach out to us and let us know. The new Tracker endpoints is pretty similar to the old ones in terms of how they look on the outside and what you have to send in and how they behave. And the main change in the new endpoints is how they are built. So we have built this new endpoint from the ground up to be more optimized for the future. And this is my last slide, so I will hand it over to the next speaker. I'm not sure if Scott got his internet back or whether we are going to Android now.
We're going to Android.
Yeah, I think it's me. So yeah, hi everyone. Good morning, evening, or afternoon. Let me share my screen. Okay, present. Okay, I think you can see my screen, right? Okay, so my name is Jose Garcia. I am part of the Android management team, and I am representing Android in this session. So yeah, I'm going to talk about what is new in Android for the last year. But first of all, let's talk about the adoption, the DHIS2 Android adoption. As we can see in this chart, we can see the number of active users from August 2019 till June 2021. And by an active user, we mean the Android users that are using the application at least once in the previous 30 days. So as we can see here, there are like a big increase between the February 2020 and April 2020 of around the 300%. And this is because many implementations and countries, organizations, they change their priorities in order to track the COVID cases. So this is basically due to COVID. And we see that how these numbers they was maintained over time. And then we can see like in November, from November of 2020, many implementations, many projects that were delayed, they started to be reactivated. Like I can think of, for example, some of in Nigeria, or a big campaign, immunization campaign in Bangladesh, or other projects in Togo. So we have seen here experience a big increase as well of Android usage. And then in March of April, there is also a big peak over here that represents that many organizations were starting to use the Android application to track the COVID vaccination delivery. And overall, we can see like over the last 2 years, we are experiencing an exponential growth of more than 700%. This represents the countries that are actually using the Android application. We can see that the Android application is being used in most of the African countries, and also in several of Asia, especially in Southeast Asia. And we are starting some new projects in Latin America as well. Nigeria is the country with more active users, this time representing more than 20,000 active users in the last 28 days. Okay, and this is what is happening right now in the last 30 minutes. So we can see there are like almost 1,500 active users that 75% are using a mobile device, 25% a tablet device. And we can see that they are more now located in East Africa and West Africa. Okay, now talking more about the features, what is new in Android in the latest version. So yeah, it's compatible with all the DHIS2 versions from 2.30. And now in this version, we are starting to use a new platform to track like the usage stats of Android. So it's called Matomo. It is open source, and you can track how the users is using your application. And this was a big requirement from the community. So now any organization or any country, they can have their own Matomo instance, and then they need to configure the DHIS2 server in a way that all Android devices will send the information, the usage information to their Matomo instance. I'm going to show how in the next 15 minutes. And also in the latest version, users are able to log in the app using they don't need to use user names or password anymore. They can use Google accounts or Microsoft accounts if they have configured the OpenAid in the server. Well, this is going to be ready when the next patch release of the web is coming up in the 2.36.2 in the coming months. So also we have revamped all the navigation menus across the main screens of the application, that now they look much more modern now. So let me show you how it looks. So hopefully now you can see my Android device, otherwise please let me know. So if I am like selecting, for instance, the child program, I can see that it opens by default the list view of the TIs. But then I can navigate to the map view over here, like other way of representing my TIs in my device. Okay, and while loading, we need to remember that we are going to show in the map all the TIs that has associated any GPS coordinates, as it is here. Okay, so now let's go back to my list view, and I'm going to select this TI. And when I open the TI, I can see the enrollment information and all the events as usual. But now I can navigate the different parts of the TI, for instance, the relationship, using this navigation menu in the bottom. Here I have the relationships, and here I have the nodes. Okay, and this behavior, we can see this behavior also in the event dashboards and in datasets as well. Okay, so other feature that has been it was a big requirement from the community is the possibility of having offline analytics. Offline analytics is like for us is how we can analyze the data stored in the device using charts or tables and so forth. So this local data is data that is stored in my device that maybe is not yet synchronized with the server. Okay, this is a big one. This is a big task. So we need to follow an approach of dividing this task in different phases. So for the first phase, that is what we're going to see now, we are just entering in the TI analytics. So the scope is the enrollment. Okay, and we are going to see how we can render like bar charts, line charts, or even WHO growth charts in the scope, or tables in the scope of the enrollment. So let's see how this looks like in my Android application. So I am in the same TI as before, Ryan Campbell here. So now if I can click on this button, on this tab, so I can see that we have information about the feedback. This is not new. We had the feedback in the previous versions. But then charts and indicators. These are program indicators, these values over here. But now also we can see that there is kind of this line chart with the infant weight. This represents the values of a data element that belongs to a repeatable program stage. Okay, and this, of course, this data element needs to be numeric. Okay, we also have the evolution of the height. That is also a data element that belongs to a repeatable program stage. And these are the values, how the values evolve over time. We can change the renderization here. I can say, okay, I would like to see this as a bar chart, or I can see this one as a table, okay, or I can see this one as a value. So in this case, I am only showing the app is only showing the latest value that has been recorded. All right, so let's continue. Let's move on. So maps, in Android, we have maps since a year and a half ago, but so far we were only able to display attributes that belong, coordinates, TI coordinates, enrollment coordinates, and event coordinates. And in this version, we are also able to display attributes and data elements, which value type is coordinate. And also we are going to display, we are going to be able to know what is the current location of the user. And that is quite important when the user needs to navigate to any other specific location. So let's see again how this looks like in Android. So in this case, I'm going to open this program, the malaria case diagnosis, treatment, and investigation. Within this program, I am recording the malaria cases, and yeah, I'm going to open the map view. Okay, and then I am going to select just the TIs, the cases that has been recorded this month. So here in my filter, I can select this month. Okay. And now I can see, well, you can see the blue dot, that is where I am located right now. Okay. So, and basically these are all the malaria cases that are registered in my area. In this example, this geoposition can mean like the household where this person lives. Okay. But now as we have the possibility of rendering here in a map like attributes as well. So imagine that in your configuration, you can have an attribute that represents the work location of the person. So how can I do that? So in this case, I need to go to the layer over here and then select the work location. This is an attribute, so I can select the work location. In this case, there is only one TI of those 5 that has been added, a value for that attribute. Okay, and this represents, if I select this one, so it seems that this TI is duplicated, but one is the attribute, the work location, where these people actually work, where this person actually works, and this represents where the person actually lives. Okay, we can also have, as you know, we can also render, let me go back to my previous setup. We can also render satellite view if we want. Okay, in this case, we have my view of the city where I'm living right now. And then we can let me change this. We can render also relationships. Okay. So it's a select. This is not new, but I think it's worth it to mention as well. Index to cases. So then I can see the different relationships that we have. So we can see that this is an index case of these two cases over here. This is valid, of course. This is a malaria use case, but this is valid as for COVID as well. But now what happens, imagine that I am a health worker and I need to visit this TI, this person over here that lives over here in order to conduct an investigation or to facilitate a test. So now, if I am selecting this person, and I can select here in this card, in this carousel card over here, so I can click on the navigation button, and this will show up all the Maps app that I have installed in my device. In my case, I have Google Maps and Maps.me. So I'm going to use Maps.me because it is an app that allows me to work offline, to navigate offline. Okay, so I'm going to click on this one. Okay, this is going to take a little bit to render. But here we go. This blue spot represents where the TI is, where the person is living, where is the household. So now I can click in the route to in this button. And then the application is going to tell me the best path to get to that place. Okay, and it's the same with Google Maps. So I'm not going to do the demo with Google Maps. I believe you all know how to use Google Maps. Okay, let's continue with more features that we have. So also working lists. Working lists are filters that has been defined in the server. So this is very useful for the Android users because it allows them to have different views of their data. So imagine that we can have a list of events, and a list of events it can be like tasks that need to be conducted like today or tomorrow, or tasks that has been conducted in the previous month. Okay, so let's see an example. So I'm going to open the malaria care registration. Okay, and basically these are all the events that have been recorded. So, but now when I'm clicking on the filter button, I can see here my working list. Okay, my views. Okay, so I can see the events as has been assigned to anyone, the events that has been assigned to me. Okay, okay, and that I see that I have 4. But then I can also see the events that has been assigned to me that needs to be conducted today. So these are like my tasks that need to be conducted today. And I can show them also, as I said before, in a map. So we have now, I would like to say, we have now a nice way to render in a map what are the tasks that a person needs to conduct. And they can select the place that they want to go and click on the navigation button so they can have, then they can see what is the best path to go to the household or the patient as well. Okay, let's continue. Sorry. So also we have other things that we have are features that we have are legends for data elements, program indicators for events, and indicators for data sets. Let's do a quick example, a quick demo with this. So let's open this program. I'm going to select like any event over here. Okay, we can see the legends. With 68 years old, we can see how the legends are being displayed there. And also now in the events, we have the same navigation button as we have seen for the TIs. And now we have here this button for the analysis. And what we can do is like to display the value of the program indicator. So in this case, we only have one program indicator, and this value is displayed here. And for data sets, let me navigate to one data set, the child health, for instance. And now we can see like this is for immunizations. We can see that we have a list of indicators here. We have 2 indicators, and these values are being the total OPV doses given and total PCV doses given are being calculated on the fly. Okay, complete on the fly. Okay, so let's now change topics now. And in Android, we have like other products. That is what we call the Android Settings Web App. You can like download, this web app has been there for at least 8 months, I believe. And you can download this web app from the DHIS2 app hub. Okay, what this app does is gives you more possibilities regarding the configuration of your Android devices. So let's run a quick demo as well on this. So let me then, sorry, I'm going now to be using so I guess now you're seeing my DHIS2 server. So I have installed that app in my DHIS2 server. So I'm going to navigate through it. Okay, this is the general menu and an overview. And what we can see is like in the general settings, we have now 2 new text fields. Okay. And in these text fields is where you have to introduce the URL of your Matomo instance. So if you want to track the usage of Android in your implementation, and you have a Matomo instance, you need to place the URL here. Okay. And whenever you connect to URL, you need to start a project, and then the project ID it will like you need to fill the project ID here. Okay, so if you have these two fields properly filled, then any actions that are happening with your Android devices is going to be tracked in your Matomo instance. Okay, we also have SMS gateways. This is not new, but maybe just to a quick reminder, SMS gateways, if you want to allow SMS synchronizations as well. And then encrypt that device database. This is quite important because if you mark this, all the devices that are synchronizing with the server, their database are going to be encrypted. This is important when in your implementation you need to manage like sensitive data as an HIV project. Okay, this is not new. This has been there for the last 8 months, but just a quick reminder that in the synchronization, we can synchronize how often the metadata and data will sync, and also the programs, how many TIs we want to synchronize, what is the maximum number of TIs to synchronize, the time period, the maximum events to download, and within which time period. Any time period, last month, last 3 months, last 12 months. So this is going to give you like a lot of granularity, a lot of power in order to configure your Android setup in your implementations. The same for datasets. What is new in this version is this section about the appearance and analytics. Okay, so let's go through this section. So before that, we have, as you know, we have like a different filter options in our Android applications. We have the in the home screen, and also if I open a program, we can see that there are like different filters over here. In this case, 6 filters. So the community is telling us that this sometimes is very complicated because the end users, they normally don't need to have all these filters. But then we listen of other implementations that they really need to have these filters. So what can be like a long-term solution here? So basically what we have tried to do is like this now in the appearance section, we are going to be able to define what are the filters that we would like to show in the home screen for the programs or for datasets. So I'm going to run a quick example. Let's say that I am only interested in the enrollment date as a filter. So I'm going to remove these filters over here. Okay, and also I can define this for a specific program. Let's say that this is my general behavior, but for this particular program, the child program, I just want to have 2 filters, enrollment date and the event date. Okay, so let's save it. Save it. And then I'm going to synchronize in a moment to see how it looks like. We have the same for datasets. In the case of datasets, we only have 3 filters that we can like turn on or switch off. Okay, but then the analytics here is where you can define the items that the Android users will see. Okay, so what happens if, for instance, you would like to see like the a WHO chart, growth chart. So this is not possible to visualize right now for the TIs in the web, but what we can do here is that we can just select the program. You know that this is, again, this is the scope is enrollment. So we need to select a program and then a repeatable program stage. In this case, we only have one repeatable program stage. And then I am going to create this chart notation by Jose. This is optional, this field over here. I am going to select the nutrition chart. Okay, I need to select the name again. The WHO nutrition chart, and then I can select, I'm going to select, we have 3 options here, wait for height. I'm going to select this one. And now every nutrition chart at WHO, you need to select the gender. So here you need to select which is the attribute that represents the gender in your configuration. So in this case, it's gender, and then the option codes for females, and in this case, female, the option code for males. And then what I would like to represent in my horizontal axis. So it's a data element or a program indicator. In my case, it's a data element, and it's going to be the height. And the vertical axis is going to be a data element as well. I'm going to represent here the weight. Okay, so I'm going to add this, and I'm going to save it. Okay, and now what I need to do is like I need to like synchronize my my device. So let's do it. Okay, And while this is happening, just to mention that what we are seeing is pretty new. In fact, these menus over here, Appearance Analytics, has not been released yet, but they're going to be released for sure during the next couple of days. Okay, so if you would like to play with this application, just stay tuned and then let us know how it works for you. Okay, and now let me see if this has been done with not yet, but almost there. And also the users that can use this application, as I wanted to mention, they need to be super users. They need to have the all authority linked to them. Okay. So okay, this has finished the synchronization. Now I'm going back to my home screen, and let's see how the program. So these are my the setup for the filters that they have. So if I open now the malaria case diagnosis, treatment, and investigation. Okay, now I can see that I only have one filter over here. However, if I open because we have, you remember that we have a specific settings for this particular program. So for the child program, we have the enrollment date at given date. So let's see if this is what is happening. Okay, yes, we only have these two, the event date and date of enrollment. Okay, and now what happened with my chart, the chart that I have defined in the Android settings app. So if I open now this TI, okay, I'm going to my analytic tab. And in fact, here we go. Now we can see this W2 nutrition chart. With this, I can like zoom a little bit to see the values, and the values are there. Okay, so just finishing my presentation. Let me go back. Let me just some resources. So Android updates, everything is in the web. You can use this link over here. Please let us know any question for that. There is an Android community of practice in this link. The Android SDK, is there any developers in the room? If you are interested in creating a new Android application that is compatible with DHIS2, we strongly recommend to use the Android SDK. And we are going to have a session of an introduction for the SDK on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Okay, so stay tuned. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much. And I think, Scott, you are the...
Back online. Lars, am I ready to go now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. And let it be known that it was Zoom that crashed, not DHIS2. DHIS2 is doing fine. I kept on going, even without you guys. But now we're all back together, and I'm sorry for the disturbance there. I'm going to jump right back into where I think I left off with you, and that is talking about some of the new features in the Data Visualizer app. I've broken this into two parts. So the first part here is going through the ability now to have visualization type menu. We also have a universal data item search in the Data Visualizer app. We also now allow for combination charts as well as multi-axis charts. So let's just have a quick look at these. The data item selection menu, or excuse me, the chart or visualization selection menu. Now you see that we have 20 different chart types available. That includes pivot tables as well. And each one of these comes with a little bit of text with it to give you a little bit more information about how the best way to use this particular chart is, and some recommendations. For example, if we look at the line, we see that we have track or compare changes over time, right? That's the appropriate use of a line chart. And we tell you a little bit about, we recommend that you put period as your category. So a little bit of clue you into what's the most optimal layout or configuration for this chart to help folks avoid mistakes or to use inappropriate chart types for different kinds of data. Okay, so we're going to still leave this at column chart. And then I am going to now go to my data. And sorry, let me just catch up on my, there we go. And in my data, I am going to turn on, I'm going to search for A and C. And you'll notice that when I search for A and C, now with our new universal search in the data item selection, we are seeing any data item that has A and C in the name. So here we see a data element. Just below that, we see an indicator. If we scroll down a little bit, we start to see some event data items. And here we even see some program indicators. So now we're seeing all data items there in the list based upon your search results. It practically means that users, when they're using DHIS2 analytics, don't have to know the difference between a program indicator, a data element, an event data item, or a standard indicator. They can just search by the name and it will show up based upon what they search. So I'm going to turn on ANC coverage 1, 2, and 3, as well as ANC visits 1, 2, and 3. Click update. And so I'm getting this bar chart now, and we're seeing that our ANC visits are the big tall bars, and our coverages are basically can't see them because they're percentages. Well, we can do something to address this now. If we go to the series tab in the options menu, we can now move our coverage indicators over to a line. So now we can toggle between lines and bars for in column and bar charts. So we'll move these coverages over to lines, and let's make it a little bit easier. Let's actually move these to the second axis. So now you actually see in Data Visualizer that we support up to 4 axes, and I'll move these over to the axis number 2. Click update, and there you go. So now we see our ANC visits on the left in blue, our total count, and we see our coverages as lines on top of those on axis 2. And so it's, practically speaking, in this situation, we're easily able to show total counts or total number of patients, total number of vaccinations, any kind of regular data element. And then over that, we're easily able to show vaccination rates, coverage rates, caseload rates, any kind of indicator. All right. Let's move on to our second round of Data Visualizer. In this one, we're going to talk about 2 category charts. We're going to talk about chart color sets, bar and column chart legends, text styling in our charts, as well as show you the brand new scatter plots that includes outlier detection. So a bunch of cool stuff. I'm going to go ahead and start with a blank chart here. I am going to now turn on, again, some ANC, but I'm just going to turn on my ANC coverage 1, 2, and 3. Click update. I'm going to change this to an area chart. Update again. All right, so now we have a nice little area chart showing the last 12 months for our coverage, so we can see a little bit of a trend analysis here. Let's now say, well, what if we wanted to filter by some of our additional dimensions? You see, we have some of dimensions here with these little green dots. And of course, these green dots are telling us that DHIS2 has identified that this dimension is available to disaggregate your data. So let's do that. Let's turn on facility types. So we have community health posts, clinics, hospitals. Let's turn all of these on, and let's add them to our category dimension. I'm going to move it just so it's in front of period. Click update again. All right, and so now we have all of our various our various facility types showing ANC 1, 2, and 3 coverages over the last 12 months. So we can quickly do some trend analysis or some comparative analysis between our different facility types. We can see some crazy stuff is going over on in some hospitals with an ANC 2 coverage of nearly 250%. That's probably the data quality issue. But we can see, some nice, comparative analysis here with our 2 category charts. One really cool thing now that we also have, if we go to our style tab in our options menu, we have different color sets available. So most of you have grown up using our standard DHIS2 color set for the last 15 years. We have introduced quite a few additional ones. So now we have a bright option, a dark option, a gray, one for colorblind, and patterns as well. So let's just take a look at the colorblind just for an example. All right, so now you see the same chart, different colors for your data items that are suitable for those who are colorblind. Okay, I am going to change this to a column chart. Still leave the same layout. Now under bar and column charts, we have a legends tab. So you notice this legends tab is showing up in our options menu. I'm going to click on that, click display legend, and then I'm going to say that we have 2 options, use predefined legend per data item, or select a single legend for the entire visualization. I'm going to choose the second option for the entire visualization. And I'm going to select my legend. Again, of course, these are predefined legends. I'm going to click update. And now you see that all of my bars have changed colors based upon the legend based upon the values that the bar is showing in accordance with the legend that's been applied. So if I hover over one of these, you see that this value 161.4 is showing up in the legend class greater than 100, which is this blue color. And I can quickly see some places where performance is quite poor. They're showing up in red. This area is 37.3, and that's following into the 30 to 40 color class in this legend. Okay, if I continue in the options menu, we are now able to style virtually all text on a chart. And just to give you an example of that, if I go to style, now I can choose a custom chart title. I'm going to give it the name title. I'm going to make it extra large. I'm going to show it up on the left. Let's change it to this outrageous pink blue or pink purple color. Let's make it bold and italics. Click update. And now you see my title is huge in this ridiculous color and easily able to be read. You can essentially do this for all text on the dashboard, or excuse me, in the Data Visualizer app. And of course, when you save it, it shows up on the dashboard as you see it here. The next thing to show in the Data Visualizer app is the new scatter plots. A really exciting new chart type here. You see it, it's filled in our menu to give us a nice even 20 different visualization types. So I'll click on chart. I'm going to remove my ANC coverage. So my vertical axis, I'm going to add, let's just keep with the trend here, ANC 1 visits. On my horizontal, I'm going to put in ANC 2 visits. And you notice that the layout menu has changed based upon the chart type that I've selected. So dynamically rendered there. And so what happened? I did click update and we just see 1 point, and that's just showing up for the country. So my org units is just at country level. Let's drill down to facilities. Click update. And now we see all of the facilities in Sierra Leone. And we see that each point here represents an individual facility, and the values for ANC 1 and ANC 2 are intersecting based upon the horizontal and vertical axis there. So this is fun. You can do a lot of cool analysis with this. One of the best ones to do is in the options menu. If I can go to outliers, go to the outliers tab, and I can apply outlier analysis. And in our outlier analysis, we have 3 different outlier methodologies. We have interquartile range, Z-score, and modified Z-score. Now we have a session coming up on Thursday specifically on data quality and how to best use DHIS2 for data quality checks. And we'll go over each one of these in a little bit more detail. But for the sake of time right now, it's just suffice to say that interquartile range and modified Z-score are considered the more robust options for outlier detection. We've included standard Z-score because people are used to it. It's been around for a while. But we would recommend using interquartile range and modified Z. It's just going to be more of an accurate outlier analysis. When I select one of these, you'll see that I have a threshold factor that has to be set. It will autofill with a certain threshold factor that's kind of considered the normal threshold factor for detecting outliers for a particular methodology. For example, if I change it to modified Z-score, it goes to 3. If I change it back to interquartile range, it'll go back to 1.5. And then we also have another option to apply extreme lines. Essentially, extreme lines will put a line, a dotted line, over a certain percentage of the total national figures. That'll make sense here just in a second once I turn it on. All right, so here we have outlier analysis. So we see a bold black line running through the middle. This is our median or a linear regression line. And then we have on either side of that our threshold lines. Again, using interquartile range. And then everything that falls in between that is green. Everything that falls outside is showing up red. And we also have our extreme lines going horizontally and vertically. So again, this is essentially this vertical horizontal extreme line is showing the 1% value of total ANC 1 visits in the country. So anything that's beyond these extreme lines are considered extreme outliers, meaning that they're throwing off more than 1% of the total national figures. They're skewing national figures. One cool thing that we also have with scatter plots is you see everything here is kind of clustered together, and that's normal. You'd expect a lot of clustering for facilities of similar size. And if I want to zoom in on these, I can click and hold down and drag this blue box over that area, let go, and now it automatically zooms in. And I can keep zooming in until I can see each individual facility. To reset the zoom, it's just top right corner, zoom reset, and now I'm back. Okay, so that's not everything that was added to the Data Visualizer app, just some highlights. I've got to move on for the sake of time to the Maps app. So in the Maps app, a lot of new additions as well. We've added bubble maps because of a request from the countries that are implementing DHIS2 for COVID. We have event data tables for your event maps or event layers. We also are dealing now with node data handling. We also have event status filters, and very excited, we have population maps provided through Google Earth Engine based upon world population estimates. So I'll just demo the bubble maps, event tables, and the population just for the sake of time. So I'm going to go to the Maps app. I'm going to add a thematic layer. I'm going to choose data element. Let's go down to our immunization. Okay, and then I'm going to choose BCG doses given. Then I'm going to leave period, org unit, and filter untouched. Go over, select to my style, go over to bubble map, click update, and here you go. So now you see a bubble map showing total BCG doses given per district here. So a nice, easy way to demonstrate a lot of data quickly. Of course, the size and color of the bubble is proportional to the value measured against the legend here. All right, let's remove this layer. Now let's add an event layer. I am going to go to my inpatient morbidity and mortality program. I'm going to leave period untouched. Org units is going to be fine. I'm going to go over to style, and let's style by a data element. None of this is actually new features. These were demoed last year. I'm going to now style by gender. And here comes my map of all events recorded in the inpatient morbidity and mortality program. Come back over here and let's show our data table. So you see our data table is now showing up below the map. And each one of these columns is filterable. So let's say I just want to see those patients who had the discharge of died. And maybe let's say those that are under 5. So now I see all the died here listed under 5. And you see that my map automatically updated based upon the filters that I was setting in the data table. So just a really quick way to filter out a lot of data that's shown on a map and really kind of zoom in or specify exactly what you're looking for, or find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is turn on some of these new population maps. So we've been working very close with WorldPop, who has very advanced population estimating methodologies and produces a lot of maps that are widely used by folks all around the world. And through the Google Earth Engine, we're now able to pull these into DHIS2. So I am going to turn on the population age layer. And essentially, they are able to provide population estimates for sex as well as age groups. So let's turn on all under 5s. So we're going to turn on men 0 to 1, men 1 to 4. And let's go down women 0 to 1, 1 to 4. We're going to leave our aggregation method to sum and mean. That's fine for now. You can change this. There's additional options available. Organizational units and period will keep the same. Style, we'll keep that the same. Organizational units right now is set to district. Let's add this. So what it's doing right now is it's pulling data from the Google Earth Engine. So it's going to take probably somewhere between 5 to 15 seconds to load, depending upon your country, how much data it's going to be pulling. So right now it's pulling all of Sierra Leone. Here it comes. And so what we actually see, let's just close the data table. What we see is a heat map of population. We zoom in a little bit. We start to become a little bit more granular, or the resolution improves a bit. And if I click on this district, for example, you can see that it's giving me some totals based upon the World Pop estimates. We have a mean under 5 population of 4.08 per hectare, and a total under 5 population in that district of 87,526. So that's pretty cool, usable, actionable information, hopefully. Now, what if you're doing some kind of facility-based outreach program, vaccination campaigns? One cool thing that we can also do with this is if we go to our facility layer, and let's say we want to reach all children that are within a 5-kilometer radius of the health facility, just for example. So I'm going to come over to style, make sure my buffer's turned on, leave this to 5,000 meters or 5 kilometers, click update. And again, it's pulling a lot of data from World Pop right now. So it's going to take just a few seconds. Still loading. Here it comes. All right, here are our facilities. And if we zoom in, we can see we have that 5-kilometer buffer. We click on it, then we can see for this facility has a mean population per hectare of 7.3 and a total under 5 population within its 5 kilometers of it of 3,303. Now, I think that is all I have time to show for maps. The only thing to point out is that we have a technical session on maps tomorrow, as well as an expert lounge on maps. So please do come with any maps questions. If you want more detail on these functionalities, I went through them very quickly. Do show up for those sessions, and we're happy to answer any and all questions that you have. So with that, I'll hand it over to Austin and Lars, who will take us through the last presentation on platforms.
All right. All right, thanks very much, Scott. A lot of exciting features there. So we are running a bit late, but we'll try to cover now the platform products in the last section here. So it will be myself and Austin presenting here. So in 2036, we came out with a few new apps. The SMS app was completely rewritten based on the new sort of React tech stack that we have. And the new app is quite a lot nicer. We removed some of the quirks and sort of not working functionality that we had in the old one, and replaced it with a much better looking, much more user-friendly app. So just to give you a super quick glimpse into how that works, if you go to DHIS2, you can search for SMS. The previous app was called Mobile. This one is called SMS, and it's mainly dealing with, or only dealing with SMS related functionality. So here you can see we can add the gateway configurations for SMS gateways. You can define different commands. For instance, we can define key value parsers, and so on. And here we have detailed information, right? Reply message, wrong message format, no user message, and then we can add, the keywords for the different data elements to submitted over SMS and so on. So pretty much the same sort of functionality, but much better looking, much more user friendly UI here. We have the sent and the received SMS over here. Okay. We also included a new version of the import-export application. And again, it's the same functionality, except that we made it a lot more user-friendly, looks better. And we also exposed a lot of the options that we have in the API in the user interface. So in this case, the API actually had kind of outpaced the UI quite a bit. There was a lot of options that we haven't exposed in the app that is now exposed in the user interface. So by having a look here, we can see that we have an import section, we have an export section, There's data imports, there's event imports, GML, metadata, fragment instance, and so on and so on. And you can see here that we have a lot more of the options that we support, like the strategy for how to import different types of data, how to import different types of metadata, how to handle errors, import strategy, merge modes, and so on and so on. There's also advanced options down here. So a lot of new options for you available now in the import-export application. Okay. Then in the later versions, we also spent a lot of efforts on improving sort of data quality support in DHIS2. And that goes for data sort of validation rules. It goes for outlier detections. Scott just showed you how you can use scatter plots with lines to identify outliers. In 236, we also had the ability to do set score based outlier detection. So set score basically means the number of standard deviations a value is from the mean, right? So, and this is a very sort of typical and popular method in statistics for finding outliers in data sets. So the good thing with the new functionality that outliers is basically ordered by the absolute deviation from the mean. So basically how far the value is above or below the mean. And they also basically rank the values by the deviation from the mean. And the good thing here is that we can actually then identify the values easily, which impact the aggregate analytics the most. Previously, the problem was that we only had, all outliers returned without any significance or order. And that made it very hard to kind of fix the problems that actually impact the sort of aggregate analytics, which is what we basically want to do at the end of the day. So if we go to the data quality app, we can now see that there's a section called outlier detection. So we can go here, we can select the data set, we can select the organizational unit or just keep it at the national level. It's also quite a lot faster now, so you can basically do larger data sets in one go. We can select the start date. So we can just leave it there. By default, it's 3 months before the current date. In terms of the algorithm, we can either decide to use the set score based method, or we can use min-max values. Min-max values have been there for a long time. This is basically a way to inject custom values into the database. We can select a threshold. We can say the max results. And we can also, as an advanced option, we can also set the start and end date for the data period. So this is essentially the start and end date for the output report period. And this can be the start and end date for the underlying data to be analyzed. And then importantly, we can also then sort the results by absolute deviation from the mean or set score. So by running this, it takes about 3 seconds on the demo database. We basically get back a list, which is now ordered according to the deviation from the mean. So as an example, we can see here that weight for age or on about middle line. Here we have a value of 1500. We can see that the mean is 147. So this is quite obviously an outlier. And the deviation from the mean is then essentially 1,300 something. So this is a way to quickly find the outliers that actually impact your data and then fix them. And that way sort of clean up and make your aggregate analytics more reliable. Yeah. Okay. Another thing we added in 235 was support for something called OpenID Connect. So some of you know what this is. To those who don't, OpenID Connect is basically a standard that's based on OAuth 2, which is an open authorization protocol. It's basically a standard for internet users to basically grant third-party applications access to their information without giving out your password. So it's typically those cases where you say something like, log in with Google or log in with Facebook that you probably all have seen. So OpenID Connect is an authentication or identity layer built on top of OAuth 2. And it basically provides a more modern sort of programming experience with a RESTful JSON API and the use of something called JSON Web Tokens. So the benefit of this functionality would basically be to allow for single sign-on across multiple systems. So if you have an identity provider using, let's say, Google or Azure AD Connect, Azure Active Directory or Facebook or whatever, you can now have a single sign-on across all your systems in your organization. So that means that there's no need to go and sign in everywhere. You can sign in one place and then automatically be signed in into DHIS2. And there's also no need to maintain yet another dedicated password for DHIS2 users. You can just reuse what you already have. To do this, you need to map your existing users using the OpenID field on the user. So that one has to match the sort of identity of the record you have in your registry. We do support many sort of providers out of the box. Some of them we have made special providers. Those include Google, Microsoft Azure AD, and something called VSO2. We also have a generic provider, so it works with pretty much most popular providers out there. Yeah, and this is very carefully documented in the installation guide, so have a look there if you would like to enable this. Okay. We also did a couple of improvements around users. So you can now set user account expiration. So in the user screen now, if you go to user app, the add or edit user, we can now set an expiration date for the user. So that's very good for the cases where you'd like to employ some sort of security policy that says, for instance, users that haven't logged in, or people you would like to basically create user accounts which expire at a specific date. And this is great for instance, guest users. If you have a guest user in your organization, you can give the person basically a temporary account that expires at a given date. We also have a new job in the scheduler application for automatically disabling users which haven't logged in for a certain number of months. So this is good to comply with, security policies. Sometimes you would like to say that people haven't logged in for 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 months. They should automatically be disabled in the system and require kind of explicit enabling to get back in. And this is good to avoid kind of dead user accounts and having user accounts that kind of retain the system for a very long time. Yeah, I'm just going to mention a couple of sysadmin or administrator improvements in the system as well. We have a new option now in the DHIS2conf configuration file for disabling the change log or the audit log. This can be quite helpful when you have a centralized system that acts as a central data warehouse, essentially, for multiple upstream systems. So when you have lots of sort of, let's say, country or province systems reporting into a central instance, you don't really want all these change log to be building up because they just, add a lot of, spend a lot of disk size on your server for no reason really, because the audit will still be there in the upstream systems. So now there's an easy way to basically disable those. We have another option for disabling server-side program rules, which can be quite helpful to debug, stability issues, performance issues, and so on. When it comes to the user APIs, we also realized that the user's endpoint was a little bit too open for many people's liking. And especially we got a few security audits that they wanted us to make it more restricted. So we now essentially have 2 endpoints for users. One is the user lookup one, which is open, which requires no authentication, but only provides very limited info like the name, username, and so on. This is for applications that need access to this, like the messaging app, for instance. And for the main users endpoint, we now require a specific authority called view users to be able to see this one. So this allows you to basically lock down sensitive data around users in your applications. The added data sharing for SQL views, meaning you can now distinguish between people who should be able to read or change the SQL view and people that should be able to view the underlying data for the SQL view. And finally, we improved the performance of the integrity checks quite a lot. Previously, it was getting quite slow, as we have seen very large instances with a lot of metadata. It got slow to the point of almost being unusable. We have redone the entire underlying solution now, so it's using database SQL queries to a much bigger extent, which makes the thing a lot faster. So that's good. When it comes to translations, we now have a lot of new entities and properties being translatable. This particularly came through as part of the metadata packages work. So now things like visualization axis, labels, target lines, subtitle, title, and so on can be translated. Tracked instance event filters can be translated. And also fields within validation rule, like the instructions, program description, report and event dates, program rule warnings and error messages, and also app names can now be translated as well to provide a complete sort of internationalized experience to end users. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to Austin to talk a little bit about the platform improvements that we have.
And just to let you guys know, we have about 2 minutes left, so hopefully this is
Yes.
quick.
Thanks, Lars. I will try to make this very quick. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Austin McGee. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the application platform improvements that we've seen in 235 and 236. The main one of those is called continuous application delivery. This was introduced in 235 and improved in 236. And it's been kind of a silent feature because we haven't seen much use of it yet, but you'll be seeing more of this. So we wanted to really make sure that it was well introduced. Basically, what continuous application delivery means is that bundled applications in the DHIS2 core can now be overridden by installed applications. And this allows the core team to build and deploy applications on a more regular cadence and deploy those through the App Hub to DHIS2 instances that can upgrade those applications without necessarily needing to upgrade their server, which is a much more complex and time-consuming process. Apps are now starting to also support multiple DHIS2 server versions, so we'll be able to introduce features to those applications that can be used on 235 and 236, for instance, not only 236. In practice, this means that implementations get new app features and fixes faster, and we'll see more and more of the core applications coming onto the App Hub soon. Just a very, very quick demo of that. You can see here that I have installed in a 235 server a new version of the dashboard application, which I can open up, and at the same URL where you would normally find your dashboard application, I now have this version that has a different title and has implemented some features that were not in the version that's bundled in 235. So all the links and everything to this application continue to work. I can also do additional overrides of other applications. For instance, I can override the app management app, which is the one we're looking at here. This will take a moment, and I will show you that renewed interface, which will be a completely new interface of that application in just a moment. While that is loading, I'm going to talk a little bit about the DHIS2 App Hub, which has been completely redesigned. This is a much nicer interface for searching, viewing applications that developers across the world have uploaded and have been vetted by a review board at the UIO core team. We are reviewing application submissions on a weekly basis. We've published a set of guidelines that you can find at developers.dhis2.org. And those guidelines implement some certain requirements for apps that are uploaded to this App Hub so that you can have a little bit more confidence in what the quality of those applications are. So those apps should all be useful and appropriate for DHIS2. They should be generic and be open source, so you can always see what source code is used to build those applications. They should be well designed and documented, and they should be secure and performant. So we have a session on this tomorrow at 2 o'clock Central European time if you want to learn more. I'm going to go now very quickly to show this application that I just installed. So I just overrode the app management app. So I'm going to refresh this. And you'll see that there is a completely new interface for the app management app that is going to be loaded here in this 235 instance. This is a version of the app management app that has a very nice interface for searching apps on the App Hub, for seeing the apps that are available with updates from the App Hub, including the core applications that are bundled with DHIS2. And again, this is a 235 server with an updated version of the app management app that it was not bundled with, and it can be used to update other versions as well. So you'll see more of this coming soon. The final slide that I have here is about improvements to the application platform, which, if you're not sure what that is, it's a common framework that we're using for all core applications in DHIS2. We're at about 70% of the core applications that have now adopted this platform in 236 and should reach 100% shortly. A number of new components have been added to the UI library in the last year. Here's a few of them shown on the screen here. We've also introduced the ability to detect the server version that you're talking to automatically so that you can have an application that is able to work with multiple versions of DHIS2 core. We have a standardized app alert service, and we've also been developing our developer community with the introduction of a developer advocate in Deborah, one of our new team members who joined us in January and has been doing a great job leading trainings, academies, and meetups for developers. You can learn more about all of that at developers.dhis2.org, as well as a session that will be running at 3:00 p.m. on Wednesday, Central European time. I think that's it for me. We'll open it up for questions, but I think we might be out of time. So I think that's it for this session.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that if you have additional questions for the software team, you're welcome to add those in the community practice thread. We do have quite a number that have been asked in chat and are posting those answers there as well for the record so that people can see the discussion and continue it from now on. And with that, I think we need to move on to the next presentation since we're a few minutes over time. So I'm going to pass it over to Elaine.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to everyone here. And it proves to be, it's going to be an interesting session here with stories from education sector in Uganda, from looking at family planning in the Philippines, and looking at the health sector in Tanzania. I'm going to hand over to the presenter shortly, but a few just housekeeping rules. I'm sure you're aware that the recording is taking place, so just highlighting the fact there. Also, on the question and answers, we're going to leave it to the end of the 3 presentations to do the questions, but feel free to post them in the chat. And then just to the presenters, and Monica is up first. I will just interrupt to 12 minutes just to say, you know, that time is there, that you've got kind of 3 minutes to wrap up. Each session here is each presentation here is going to have 15 minutes because there's 3 sessions, and hopefully that'll leave us with, you know, about 10 minutes at the end. Okay, so Monica, do you want me to share the screen or are you happy to share it?
Thank you, Elaine. Please go ahead and share the screen.
Okay, and this is just in terms of issues around connectivity. So I'll just start it from the first slide there. Okay, and over to you, Monica.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn off my video.
Thank you very much, Elaine, and good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to you all. My name is Monica Amuha, and I'm presenting the DHIS2 data use cases in Uganda. So my presentation basically will highlight the data use cases in Uganda, but prior to that, I'll give a brief background of IMIS in Uganda and the strategies that we use to implement DHIS2 for IMIS. So just a background briefly, IMIS in Uganda is centrally managed by the Ministry of Education and Sports at the headquarters. And as you can see in the picture, the ministry is responsible for printing and distribution of the annual statistical forms, which are then filled by the schools, and then the schools send them to the districts for approval. And once these forms are approved, they are relayed back to the ministry headquarters where data is entered, validated, and analyzed. And this has been done in a standalone access database system. Then the ministry goes ahead to produce the statistical year abstract books that are in hard copies, and then they are shared with the districts as well as schools and also the education development partners. And this whole process from data collection to production of these statistical yearbooks takes around a period of around 6 to 9 months. So this whole time, the districts and the schools lack timely data for evidence decision making due to the delayed feedback in relaying the statistical yearbooks. The districts also, as you can see, they are left out of the data management process because they only approve the field questionnaires. And this process is annually done, and it was last done in 2017. So between 2017 and now, and to date, we've had frequent data calls from the ministry to the districts to gather additional data to inform ongoing planning. Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide, Elaine.
Oh, sorry, did I went back up?
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. So what strategies did we employ in implementation of the DHIS2 for education in Uganda? Our focus has largely been on the decentralized approach. So we focused at the district level, where we revised the district education management information system using the DHIS2. Initially, the DEMIS module is currently non-functional and was not linked to the standalone system at the central level. So the DHIS2 came in to support this, since it's web-based and could be able to link data from the district to the central level. We went ahead to empower the district teams to be able to use their data and manage their data at that level, as well as the Ministry of Education team to be able to support the district implementations. Then we had various stakeholder engagements for buy-in and scale. And important to note here is that we collaborated with Save the Children Uganda. We are collaborating with them, an existing education development partner already working in the education sector. Several presentations were also made to the ministry technical working groups, the permanent secretary, the ministers, as well as the district leadership for buy-in. And we are having continuous engagements with partners such as World Food Programme, Plan International, UNICEF, for continuous buy-in and scale up of DHIS2 for education beyond the 4 districts we are implementing in right now, as well as continuous resource mobilization to scale that project to other districts. So we also had capacity building for a multidisciplinary team at the district level. Unlike the health sector, the education sector does not have designated data managers. So we had to train the district education teams, the district planner, the ICT to be able to use this system, as well as generate data for their own decision making and planning at that level. So we also brought in the district health data managers that have been using the DHIS2 in health for over 10 years to share their experience and stories on how the DHIS2 has supported them in health, in management of health data. Then we also trained the Ministry of Education central level team to support the system, as well as harmonize their central level data needs. So these were various departments such as special needs, gender, statistics, and all these came together and harmonized their data needs. And now we are having routine, we are going to have more routine data collection vis-a-vis the annual statistical data that comes in once a year. Then lastly, we went ahead and set up the districts. We customized, we set them up with computers, shared wireless internet, procured printers and storage cabinets, as well as printed the data collection tools for them to be able to enter data into the customized DHIS2. Next. So what are the data use cases? Through this, we've been implementing the DHIS2 for education in Uganda since 20 And over this time, we've seen very interesting cases and use cases coming up from the districts as well as the central level. The first one is that data has been used for evidence decision making at district level. As you can see from all these pictures, is that we are having stories coming in from the districts telling us how they've used their data from the DHIS2 for education. So they've used the data for planning, for budgeting at district level. We have enrollment data that is entered into the system being used to inform allocation of capitation grants to the various schools. And then we also have the districts use this data for resource allocation based on the performance of the indicators in the system. So construction of classrooms, toilets, procurement of desks, allocation of teachers is all based on the performance of these KPIs. And then as you can see in one of these the dashboards, we have a scorecard here where we are having districts be able to visualize performance at different schools, or even the central level visualize performance at different districts. So this enables targeted monitoring and support supervision. This abstract here is from one of the districts telling us how they actually used the data to inform renovation of classrooms as well as construction of teacher houses. Next, then the second use case has been that this data has really informed implementation of health programs, especially at district level. But of course, this also translates to national level. The data from the system, especially the enrollment data, provided vital statistics for immunization targets. We had the measles rubella immunization campaign, a nationwide campaign that took place in 2019. And the districts where we are implementing, we are able to provide us with, to provide vital statistics for immunization targets so that appropriate vaccines would be allocated to them. Then of course, since the data is age specific, it gives learners who are eligible for HPV vaccination. And so this also informed that immunization program, as well as which learners are eligible in pre-primary schools for the deworming program. So this has really empowered the cross-sector synergies between education and health and data sharing between the two sectors. Then, of course, as we all know, we've been affected by the COVID pandemic. Also in Uganda, we had a lockdown last year in March, and all learners were sent back to school. So we went ahead to do a national data call. As you can see from this dashboard, we have, we collected data from all 140 districts across the country. And this data was used to inform the COVID response, to guide the ministry as well as the districts in distribution of self-study materials, distribution of temperature guns and masks during school opening. The districts were also able to use the data for additional lobbying for additional partner resources. And right now, since we are going into the vaccination program for the COVID-19, we've updated the teacher information into the COVID e-registry. And now this is going to also inform vaccination of teachers. So as you can see, all this data is informing planning, is informing decision-making at all levels across the sector. This is an abstract from one of the districts, also indicating that teacher information was extracted from the system, and then the teachers were supported with food items such as maize flour and beans during the lockdown. Next slide, please, Elaine. And then beyond the COVID pandemic, COVID response, the schools now during towards the end of the last year, the schools were reopened. And so we needed to do COVID school surveillance. So this prompted us now to start the COVID school surveillance using the DHIS2 for education. And this is in partnership with Save the Children, and it's being piloted still in the 4 districts that we are implementing in, with plans of scale up to the entire country, because this is vital as it provides statistics relevant for the response. So just briefly, at the school level, learners and teachers are screened, and then this data, key data on temperature, runny nose, sore throat, difficulty in breathing is recorded using short codes, and then this data is entered in a toll-free SMS-based reporting system. And then, of course, we have the real-time dashboards, both at national and district level. So this data is linked also to the district health teams that are responding to COVID for follow-up and action in case it's out of the normal. For example, if we have a school that has reported learners or teachers that have temperatures above 37 or difficulty in breathing, they are followed up to see whether they were referred to a health facility or treated. Yeah.
Just to let you know, you've just less than 3 minutes to go.
Okay, thank you. And then the other one, the other use case has been improved data visualization and display at both district and the national level. So from the system, we are able to generate very dynamic dashboards with key education indicators. At the district, they're able to print out, and at a snapshot, they're able to view their data. Then at the central level, we've provided the central level ministry with smart screens, and they are able to display this data and really guide them in decision making. Next slide. And then also what we did within the DHIS to not everything, not all the data is collected on the annual statistical form. So we went ahead to integrate data from other existing systems, such as population statistics from the Bureau of Statistics, to help us calculate key indicators such as gross enrollment ratio, net enrollment ratio. Then we also imported examination data from the National Examination Board for calculation of the performance index. So all this now is visualized in one dashboard within the DHIS2 and is able to be acted upon. And lastly, the DHIS2 for education is helping us in the process of harmonization of the institutional inventory master list. It's acting as a central repository for all registered and licensed institutions in the country. So with this, we are going to have continuous update and standardization of the master list based on the EMIS policy. And of course, we know that this master list is very vital for the Ministry of Finance in allocation of capitation grants to institutions. Next slide. So lastly, I will end with a quote from one of our district planners, Mr. Omar David, who says, because the political leadership look at their constituencies, just a minute. Because the political leadership look at their constituencies, but for us, we look at service delivery versus performance indicators. With DHIS2, we are no longer arguing. We just bring the data and the politicians will say, okay, let's put the school here, the borehole there, the toilet stances there. So this shows that they are really empowered to use their data. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry about that. My phone went off to interrupt you, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
this
I'll
is
stop
to
sharing.
acknowledge our partners. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know why my phone won't stop ringing.
This is a very good example of how cross-sectoral data use can work. So thank you so much, Monica.
Absolutely, yeah, fantastic examples there, Monica. I think hiding an awful lot of hard work, and as Kristen mentioned, great cross-sectoral examples there. And there will be another session on education as well, where we can follow up on questions. So if some of you can post questions if you have for Monica in the chat now, and we'll see if we can get them towards the end of the session. But I'd like to now hand over to Adam and Phoebe, if you could share your screen. And again, likewise, I'll just time you from the 12 minutes and let you know at 12 minutes.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
Over to you, Adam starting, and then he'll hand over to Phoebe.
Great. Well, welcome everyone to our presentation, using DHIS2 to support learning in family planning. My name is Adam Preston, and I'm a digital health advisor within the International Development Group at RTI. Next slide, please. Febby, okay, great, thank you. Just a little bit about RTI. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go back, I'm sorry, Febby. Wanted just to quickly kind of go over our presentation today. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are as RTI. I'm going to get into the project, Reach Health. It's a family planning project in the Philippines. Going to look at our MERLA framework that we're basing a lot of our work on, that we'll be presenting today, and then go through some specific examples of how we're doing that and how we're using DHIS2 within the project. And then, of course, looking forward to our future plans to expand our use of DHIS2. So a little bit about RTI. We're the first tenant of Research Triangle Park, which is one of the first US research technology parks. We're founded in 1958 by 3 area universities, state governments, and local businesses to stem brain drain from the area. We're modeled after a technology park created by Stanford University that eventually evolved into Silicon Valley. All research activities are guided by our mission to improve the human condition. Health research is our largest and single field of study, encompassing research that ranges from studies of the human genome and the development of new drug compounds to national surveys of health behaviors and the implementation of global health programs. And that's where we're going to start today. Next slide. With that, I'd like to introduce Febby, data manager on Reach Health, to share a little bit more about the project and how we're using DHIS2 to support learning and family planning. Febby?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Febby Javelin Diwayan. I am the data management specialist for USAID's Reach Health project. RTI International, in partnership with Johns Hopkins Center for Communications Program and Duke Global Health Innovation Center, is implementing USAID's Reach Health project. Reach Health project is a family planning, maternal and neonatal health innovations and capacity building platforms project in the Philippines. Its goal is to reduce, it's not working. Reduce unmet need for modern family planning, reduce rates of teenage pregnancy, and newborn morbidity and mortality. It has 3 objectives. The number 1 is to strengthen healthy behaviors through social and behavioral change. Second is to expand quality, client-centered, and respectful family planning and maternal child health care and services in underserved areas. And the third one is to institutionalize national, regional, and local systems and capacities to manage, implement, and sustain family planning and maternal child health programs in the Philippines. We have a total of 32 project sites composed of 18 provinces and 14 highly urbanized cities all over the Philippines. In order to improve the effectiveness throughout the project, Reach Health utilizes the MERLA approach. The MERLA approach is the intentional application of results-focused monitoring, evaluation, and research to inform continuous learning and adaptive management for improving program effectiveness and policy decision-making. So this cycle of monitoring and evaluation, operations research for continuous learning, and adapting best practices is being completed and repeated on a regular basis. One of the ways the MERLA approach has been implemented is through the conduct of pause and reflect sessions to identify what's working and what needs adapting. Pause and reflect sessions are meetings where data collected by the project are analyzed, interpreted, and used as basis for decision making. So we have an internal as well as an external pause and reflect session. Prior to using the DHIS2, the project has been using Excel and PowerPoint to process and visualize the data that is being collected. So we enter data in Excel at the province and city level, and then this will be submitted via email, and then it will be consolidated at the regional and national level. And then we will create the visualization in Excel and PowerPoint and disseminate the information via email and meetings like pause and reflect sessions. This process is actually tedious because the data management process is fragmented. We use different tools for data collection and then consolidation and analysis and visualization. With the use of the DHIS2, the time it took to process data has been considerably reduced, and simultaneous access to data at all levels is now possible. So this is how we configured the DHIS2 for the project's data management needs. The first dataset that we have is the FHSIS dataset. FHSIS stands for Field Health Service Information System. This is the encoding tool for routine health facility data. Prior to the use of the DHIS2, the usual problem that we encounter are errors in data entry like negative numbers. Having the DHIS2, it limits the entry of incorrect values, and it also lessens the processing time since consolidation is already built in. We also have an event program called Activity Database. This is the repository for all project-supported trainings and reportable activities in order for us to map the technical assistance that was provided to the facilities and health offices. And just recently, we also created another event program which is called Rapid Feedbacking for Facility Monitoring Data. This event program allows us to visualize the cost and initial result of the monitoring. For example, from the data that we have entered in the different data entry and capture apps in the DHIS2, we created data dashboards for our pause and reflect sessions. I will now be sharing with you one of the key examples on how we are using the DHIS2 for our pause and reflect sessions. In February 2021, we have conducted a mid-project technical review, which involves a series of activities. So it includes a lot of activities like survey to understand the expectations for the pause and reflect session. And then afterwards, we had a pre-work session where we analyze data and identify the learnings. And number 3 is we had an action planning to identify adaptive solutions and dissemination of plans. DHIS2 data dashboards was used in the pre-work sessions in order for us to analyze current data implementation experience and core challenges. What we did is that during the actual conduct of pause and reflect session, we divided the participants into several breakout rooms, and then they have to discuss an indicator that was assigned to them. So in the discussion of the family planning current users and new acceptors indicator, we realized that it is a very good, the DHIS2 is a very conducive for pause and reflect session because it also allows fast modification of visuals to suit the needed analysis while the discussion is ongoing. So here are some examples of the learnings or technical discussions during the pre-work session for the technical review in Luzon. So as you can see, we talk about the major observations on the trend of the data of current users and new acceptors for family planning. We also talk about the major observations on the geographic differences of current users and new acceptors in family planning. And we also talk about the reasons on the trends and geographic differences. Afterwards, we also talk about our learnings from the monitoring data and also our learnings from the implementation. After the pre-work session, we again gather for another session, pause and reflect session, which will then focus on identification of adaptive solutions based on the pre-work that we have conducted. So here, I will also show you some of the examples of the adaptive solutions that we have identified for the problems that we have enumerated during the analysis of the data. So for example, in lesson 1, COVID-19 created new challenges to health-seeking behavior. We have identified that redesigning the usapan, it is an activity, a demand generation activity that directly links service delivery could be a very good adaptive solution. This was already completed by the team. And then second is to create videos on family planning methods to improve quality of family planning messaging and support of community health workers who can task shift. This one is already ongoing. Second one is another common problem that we have identified is that public and private service delivery points, either individually or as part of the healthcare provider network, cannot currently prioritize family planning service provision and recording and reporting. So the adaptive solution that was identified is to support the training and mobilization of community health workers in performing basic family planning tasks, following informed choice and voluntarism principles during normal conditions and in health emergencies. This is ongoing. We have already conducted a training of trainers for the community health workers. Next one is number of private family planning service delivery points remain low. So here are the adaptive solutions that was identified to conduct quarterly internal and external pause and reflect session to identify areas of improvement. This one, I put it in ongoing, but we have already conducted it this June, internal pause and reflection for family planning in hospitals. And the second and the third, we set a realistic target for private hospitals, and we advocate the revision of the peers performance indicator reference sheet to require only 3 methods instead of 5 and focus on long-acting reversible contraception for private hospitals. So in our latest version of AMELP, this has already been updated. So I just presented you 3 sample lessons and the adaptive solutions that we have come up to for this presentation, but there are more. So
yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Feby and Adam. Yes.
Okay. Can I discuss the last slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Here is the it's the learnings from the implementation of the DHIS2 itself. On configuring the system, we have to think with the end in mind. How we build the data sets and program sets greatly affects what we can do or show in the analytics. So working with our technical advisors and program managers is very, very important. On capacity building, we have actually customized the training and user guide manual because we found out that using the actual data elements and indicators that the participants are dealing with at work facilitates the training process and makes it easier for the participants to understand the concepts being presented. And last but not the least is creation of a support group, create a platform where users and DHIS2 core team can reach one another for support. So for in the future, we will focus on enhancing the data dashboards to be used for pause and reflect sessions to be conducted at the health facilities level. Well, I hope you have garnered something from the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Adam, is there anything?
Yeah, and thank you. We welcome all questions in the chat and feel free to reach out to us via email. And of course, we wanted to acknowledge USAID and our partners, Johns Hopkins Center for Communication Programs and Duke Global Health Innovation Center for making this work possible. So thank you.
Thank you
Well,
so
thank you.
much.
Thank you very much. And Febby already has some comments posted up in the community of practice. So that's also another way of continuing the conversation. So really nice example of kind of pause and reflect that I think is applicable in all sectors. So I'd like for the last session just to hand over to Wilfred, who's going to present on Tanzania and focusing on the health sector. So Wilfred, over to you. And don't forget to keep posting your questions into the chat.
Thank you, Elaine. Can you see my screen?
Yes, that's great. Thanks, Wilfred. Yep.
Yeah, great. So good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Wilfred Signoni, and I'm a DHIS2 implementer from DHIS Tanzania. I'll be sharing our story on data use in Tanzania, looking at the challenges, opportunities presenting themselves in Tanzania, and how we kind of address, and a little bit about the plan which we have in terms of the future. So a little bit about history of DHIS2 and health information systems in Tanzania. DHIS2 was first adopted in Tanzania in 2011. 2014, we scale up nationwide to all the districts in the country. So in 2021, we have like worth of 7 years worth of data, from all the health facilities, public and private. Different health programs have also been integrated within this national system so that we can have a holistic kind of view. Of course, the data flow in Tanzania, we know that health facilities are the most point where they, kind of produce this information. So this information are produced mostly there at the facilities. Still at the facility, they have a huge registers, books in different programs, and they, collect this information and aggregate these and then send them to either the higher administrative point where the DHIS2 has been, installed at the district, or some of the facilities are also kind of have capability and or infrastructure where we have, installed this DHIS2 for data collection. So we have we started, roll out DHIS2 at the district level, but we, as years gone by, we have scaled it at the health facilities so that this information can be captured at the health facilities. Now, most of these, data managers are engaged routinely in getting this information to DHIS2. Once these information are, into the DHIS2 now, either the regional managers, the health programs at different levels, and even the national level are able to access this information immediately, and also, review this information before different stakeholders implementing patterns also get access to this information. We are talking about, more than 100 million records, aggregate records. Here I'm talking about, more than 2,000 users. In a month, you have more than 3 million records, being populated within the system so that they can be analyzed. So the challenge of availability of data is kind of diminishing, and some other challenges are now cropping up in terms of, data quality and, of course, the information use. And this is actually the topic which I'll be kind of trying to present today. Now, I've tried to kind of split this overview of data use into 2 areas. One, I'll talk about challenges, which we see kind of emanating due to the huge load of information which is available, where we have now, limited local routines of data use at the different levels in the government, in the country. Maybe too much emphasis has been put on the central level in terms of building capacity, but at the subnational level, at the health facility, we have a very low, limited data use. Still, people are clinging to the legacy systems, which they've been used to use, for example, Excel for the analysis instead of using this DHIS2 web-based systems which we have, and of course the low limited skills in using DHIS2. For example, today we have seen a very good, a lot of data analytics tools within DHIS2 where you can analyze your information, but you find that in most of these national systems, there's been low uptake of these particular advanced data analytics tools. So these are kind of the challenges which I'll be bringing up. But also we see the opportunities which are coming up. There's a lot of innovations which are coming within the systems. For example, UNICEF, we call these UNICEF apps, but they are apps which allows or facilitate data analysis and use, for example, BNA, bottleneck analysis, scorecard, etc. We see also there are kind of, local innovation in terms of dissemination of information to different stakeholders. And I will talk a little bit briefly about the HMIS portal, which we have in Tanzania. And of course, looking also to the future in terms of how can we support predictive analysis and those kind of things. Okay, so 7 years down the road after full rollout of DHIS2, and here's the snapshot of how data is used at the national system. This is kind of a snapshot. There's a feature in DHIS2 where you can, see the level of use of these analytical features within your DHIS2 system. And this is something which I've kind of generated from our national system. And as you can see, there are different kind of reports, but the most used report is called dataset report. Now, for those who don't know, dataset report is just a report which mimics the data entry collection form. And usually data managed back in the days, they were, aggregating this information. Once they've aggregated manually this information, they take this they enter this information in this kind of report similar to the data collection tool, and then send it to the upper level for analysis. So 7 years, 8 years, 10 years after the implementation of DHIS2, we see that this kind of report is still the most used report in the national, and it's used by far from the other particular analytical tools. And this kind of begs the question of why, low level of data use or low level of analytical skills at the lower level, where they kind of still have that legacy analysis skills, or the demand only to use the dataset report and then send it to the higher level instead of engaging with more analytical functions which are in DHIS2, so that they can use this information in their particular local level. We also see that the second analytical tool there is the pivot table, and we did kind of a research. One of the things which we noticed is that the pivot table has been also quite being used extensively, not rather for local information use, but just to pull all this information outside of DHIS2, put them in Excel, and then later on do their own analysis using the Excel instead of using the advanced tools within the DHIS2. So this kind of brought many questions. Is it the capacity building for them to use these analytical tools within DHIS2, or some of the DHIS2 functions are not, covering some of the local needs which are there? But there are some many reasons which we got. For example, people are kind of quite conversant with Excel, so they decided to use that and use this Excel in their reports. Of course, some of the reasons are the ones they talk about, the need, to learn more about these analytical tools. So it brings that particular aspect that we still have a long way to go in terms of building capacity, exposing our national team so that they can understand these features which we are actually building within DHIS2, and use this information, use DHIS2 to inform them during their particular meeting instead of relying with either legacy functionalities which they have or other tools. Now, these are the pictures which we got when we did a little bit of research in one of the health facility. I mean, it shows one of the disease surveillance officer who have, kind of designed some of the charts and then post them on their particular wall. Now, this we found this quite interesting in terms that there's some level of information use at the lower level, and this is at the facility level where they can use these information. The good part is all these information are coming from DHIS2. But the local team there are very conversant, are more comfortable to extract this information, and kind of draw them by pencil. I'm hoping you can see this pencil. They have a very nice case there where they hold these their kind of color pencils and etc. So this inform us more that at the lower level. There is a demand of information use. However, the skills, we have a limited skills, and we need also to promote the use of DHIS2 visualizations at the local level where they can actually use these charts. We have, been shown examples of very advanced charts, and if these particular charts visualization can be kind of scaled to the local level, then this, it will help much, first of all, our walls in our health facilities to not be clustered with all these, pictures, but, people could also use some of the DHIS2 to support them.
And you just have 4 minutes left, Wilfred, okay?
Okay, great. So moving forward, some of the, we understand there's no one single activity which is sufficient to achieve, lasting improvement in data use. So the team has been working in several interventions for promoting information use culture at different levels. One is the BNA, bottleneck analysis. This is an evidence-based planning using bottleneck analysis. This identifies, inequities, obstacles to effective health system performance, and also identify and document these root causes. On the right there, we have, different capacity building sessions, which we have kind of been scaling. This particular app, this app was built within by HIS Tanzania and HIS Uganda. There's also other app, which is called Scorecard app. This is one of the famous app. A lot of people are using it. It's used for planning, decision-making. This is something which we have done in Tanzania. Implementing it, supporting the analysis at the high level and also at the sub-national level. And some of the areas which we have worked on is, with BRN star rating, where we kind of measure the performance of various healthcare facilities. We've also worked with reproductive maternal newborn and child health program, where we've communicated the status of these programs towards key global, regional, and national indicators. We've worked also with the nutrition and also sanitation and hygiene team to support this particular implementation of the scorecard. And of course, another intervention which we've worked on is HMIS National Portal, where we have extracted routine data from the national system, push them to the portal each quarter by district level, and all the stakeholders within the country and globally, they could actually watch, view this information, and see them. We kind of developed this since 2017, and it's been kind of supporting dissemination of the ministry information from within to outside, so other people can also see it, but also catalog, communicate the progress which we're having, but also increase transparency and innovation within stakeholders. So different interventions which we have also thought of in terms of supporting information use. One is the capacity building. We know that for data to be a routine part of the decision making, people at all levels should have skills to analyze, interpret, synthesize, present, and use this information. So the team has been working with building capacity at the country level, at all levels, with different skills. You know, we have started at the national. We usually start at the national level, and we are hoping that these efforts can be cascaded to the lower level. We've also worked with health programs, you know, to kind of you know, focus on identifying the skills in you know, these program indicators and etc. When we started the national scale, we focused more on data entry, you know, validation. But as the time has gone, we have now more focus on, you know, data quality, information use, and promote, you know, understanding what works and where does it work. We have also, we know that data users need to know that they can trust the information on which they base their decision. When the quality is low, demand for data decreases, that data-informed decisions making does not occur. So as we expected, so we have been more or less also focused on improving, you know, conducting these regional data quality sessions where we have sit with the regions and districts, provide feedback to the lower levels on what the data quality issues, and so we've worked with the WHO and Ministry of Health to build a district that we call them a district data quality dashboard. And we've also configured the WHO data quality app so that they can identify the outliers, and these information are, you know, propagated back to these districts, and then afterwards, you know, they we hope that these particular sessions can strengthen the data use at the lower level. We have also been conducting research on information use to understand what works for whom, why, and where. We are conducting this research with the HIS network and other HIS groups. The knowledge generated from these, you know, research will be valuable locally and also within the community. And we share these experiences and scale the interventions which are successful in one point to also in another areas. Lastly, our future plans, I think it's high time we look about forward. We have been, you know, using this information to understand, you know, retrospectively, but now we look about how we can use this information to do a predictive analysis, you know, using artificial intelligence and machine learning to improve the health service delivery within the Tanzania. And this is an area where we are a little bit kind of interested. And we are exploring now to see how we can use this AI and machine learning to improve the information use at the national level and also at the sub-national level. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Wilfred. And before I go to the questions, we just got a few minutes for questions. I'd just like to reiterate something that came up in the chat. There is an education session that will take place on Wednesday, so you can ask further questions on the use of DHIS2 in education in that session. There's also the Thursday plenary session where we'll be looking at the whole concept of designing for data use, and we'll have sessions on Thursday after that looking specifically at the denominator issue. So you can also post, as we said, in the community of practice where there's been some ongoing discussions. But I thought it was quite interesting just looking at the chat there is one around from JK Osborne saying, is there a difference really between the two ministries in health and education? Have you noticed any significant difference? So I was wondering, if you'd like to respond to that. I presume, Monica, you'd be in the best place to respond. Have you found a significant difference between dealing with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Health?
Well, thank you very much for that question. I would say that, well, it's for government entities, it's more or less the same. There isn't a very big difference because you go through the bureaucracies to have the approvals and and the buy-in. But then also the teams, there's a difference between the teams. If, like, for example, in health, they are more data driven and they've been using DHIS2 for a long time. So they are more receptive to new DHIS2 innovations vis-a-vis in education, where now this is a new innovation that we are trying to introduce. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And I'm sure you can continue that conversation on the community of practice. And the other question, and maybe this would be for Feby or Adam or Wilfred, is in relation to the e-learning or data use modules. What has your experience been with these modules at the national and district level? I guess particularly with COVID moving into more e-learning mode. I don't know if Feby or Wilfred, you'd like to answer that?
May I answer the
Yes,
question?
yes, Feby, go ahead.
Yeah, we have actually conducted 2 trainings. The first training that we have conducted was an on-site training, in-person training. And then for the new staff that we have, since there's already a COVID-19 situation, we have also conducted an online training. So we use Zoom in order to conduct the webinar. And then we use Teams in order to monitor the outputs of the participants. So in Teams, we put everything there, the resources, the instructions on how they're going to do the exercises, as well as the references like the customized DHIS2 user guide manual. And we have also actually divided for the second training, we divided the training into those who will be conducting the data entry. And then the second training will be more focused on analytics. I hope that answers the question.
And Wilfred, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so there's quite a difference between physical and digital training, and
yeah, we're all experiencing that, Wilfred, aren't we? The difference
exactly.
between the online conference.
Yeah, definitely. But I think with what we are experiencing right now, I mean, e-learning something which is would be more or less the way forward, and it's also easier to help the local teams, where they can also train themselves within their local pace and also do some kind of in-house capacity building. The important part is to make sure that you have build these modules as effective as possible, as my colleague also said, put a lot of exercise so that they can train themselves and also retrain also their other staff when they are in their kind of area of working.
Thanks, Wilfred. Yeah, I think it's something we're all experiencing going online, is there's many opportunities and advantages to it, even though we might miss the face-to-face. So unfortunately, we've run out of time there. I just see some of the questions are coming up in the chat. These will get transferred over to the community of practice. And if you engage then with each of our presenters on the community of practice in the community of practice, but also throughout the week within the social gatherings and also the sessions I already mentioned that we'll continue to have this week. So before I just finish, I just want to say a very warm thank you to all of our presenters for, sorry I rushed you to your, to decrease your kind of all the work you've done to such a short time space, but I think you all did very, very well. So looking forward to continuing the conversation with you all during the week. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Okay. Thanks to all of our presenters.
Thank you.
So as Elaine said, we're going to wrap up this session for today, and that concludes our plenary sessions for this afternoon or evening or morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. But that doesn't mean the conference is over. We do have additional events now. So you can go on over to the Gather platform. I'm going to post the link here in the chat in just a second. And then that will be your location for both our experts lounges for the day and for mingling. So you can go and just start conversations there. You can meet some new people, hopefully. And you can also attend today's expert lounge sessions, which are on Android. And that's going to be a multilingual session in English, French, and Spanish, and budgeting DHIS2 implementations. So if you'd like to ask questions or talk about those topics, or if you'd just like to go and meet people, I encourage you to go to the Gather platform. And then once again, I posted the link for you in the chat. So hopefully I'll see you there in a few minutes. All right, thanks again for joining us today. Hope you come back for our sessions tomorrow, and we'll be sending out an email with a preview of those shortly later today. Thanks again.
How to start?
Maybe Jaime, you can do it, and then you will
English.
English, French, and Spanish. Jaime, you can do that.
I can. Well, how do I do this? Give me the power to talk to everyone. God mode.
Where, Pablo?
Jaime, you are moderator, so. But actually, I don't know if it's possible to do this. Sorry, I'm not a specialist up there.
Yeah, you have to look for yourself in the list, the user list, and there's a spotlight.
In the user list?
Yeah.
Okay. 55.
What do I do in the user list?
What's up, Grant? Grant, you weirdo, what are you doing? No, I can't. You alright, man? I totally skipped all the sessions at the conference, so I'm doing great. On YouTube, it was working fine when I checked.